Alright, so while the US government's reasons for sending so much foreign aid to Ukraine are not actually that clear, there's lots of different things you could speculate about. It's possible, ammunitions manufacturers are benefiting financially as a result of lobbying to have us, send aid there so they can acquire new contracts. Donald Trump's been making a deal to continue funding in exchange for access to their minerals industry. But that was a very recent development. Prior to that, sleepy Joe Biden was just vomiting money all over the place with it. Obama kept saying his reasons for helping Crimea were in the name of democracy, but that didn't make any sense considering that the Crimeans actually voted to be part of Russia. Plus, that was before it was a full-scale war with Russia and the Ukraine. Ukraine's biggest export and one of its largest industries that it has an economic advantage in is actually agricultural goods like cereal and shit like that, and soybeans. I'm aware there are conspiracy theories about the soybean part, but considering how much money the US government has poured into subsidizing its own agriculture industry, if our interest in Ukraine is economic, it's likely the prospect of controlling their farm industry the way they do ours. I feel like that might be kind of a stretch, though, if I'm being honest with you. I don't think we're there for the cereal. I don't think we're there for the steel. At least we weren't initially. And I don't think we're there for the tech support. Charlie Kirk, before he died, was actually one of the main proponents of the theory that Zelensky was actually a puppet government working for the CIA for some operation they had in that area. And good luck those of you who want to go down that rabbit hole if it turns out to be true. It's possible the government always wanted access to their steel production, and Trump's just the first guy to really say it in public. Whatever their reason, I think we can all pretty much agree that whenever the government decides to get involved with a conflict between two whole other countries over something that has nothing to do with us and poses no danger to us as citizens, and the only explanation they give is that they just really want to do the right thing, they're lying. In this case, most of the aid we're sending is money and weapons. Although I wouldn't be shocked if I found out they were also sending troops and just didn't admit to it. So, well, it's not really clear what reason the US government has for getting involved. The European Union, specifically Germany, when I started to look into it, their potential reasons for it actually do make sense, especially Germany, who is now proposing that they unfreeze about 140 billion euros of frozen Russian bank assets so that they can issue a loan to the Ukraine to pay for the war effort. According to the Kiel Institute, Germany is actually the country who's been spending the second most amount of money, the first being the US, obviously, in military aid to Ukraine. Now, I know what you guys are probably thinking. You're probably thinking, but wait a minute, James, doesn't the Kiel Institute get like 100% of its funding from the German government? Yeah, I'm skeptical of that too, but they're the ones tracking this, so I don't know. And according to them, the collective amount of money from all the European countries that are supplying military and humanitarian aid to the Ukraine actually outweighs the amount of money the US has been giving them. Russia's interest there, with the exception of Crimea, who seem to have largely been people who identified as Russian and actually wanted to be annexed, with the exception of that, they don't seem to be very justified in the troop mobilization throughout the rest of the country, or at least not as justified as in Crimea. They're claiming they annex other portions of the Ukraine, and of course NATO and the UN and all them are saying they annexed it illegally. Clearly they're not both telling the truth. Europe's interest, however, seems to be, ironically enough, the same interest or similar interest that we had for invading Iraq. Oil. Or to put it more accurately, oil and natural gas. But not in the way you might think, or at least not in the way the US government did it. Russia actually had a pretty considerable amount of economic power in Europe, especially Germany, because they relied so much on oil and natural gas imports from Russia. Prior to the invasion, Germany got about 34% of its total oil and natural gas imports from Russia, and the rest of Europe in general got about 29% of it from Russia. Since then, Hungary and Slovakia have been the only two European countries that continue to import from Russia. And the only reason they're even allowed to is because of some kind of exemption they have to the sanctions that we put on, or that Europe put on them. And that seems to be the main reason why Europe is backing the Ukraine in this, is concern for Russia having used its economic position in Europe to extort some of the countries. Or at least that's what they believe Russia was doing. And much of the warfare in Ukraine involved drone strikes on the Druzhba oil pipeline, which delivers much of the oil from Russia to the rest of Europe, with the Ukraine and Belarus serving as countries that control critical focal points for distributing energy resources throughout Europe from Russia, with Germany being one of the main countries that benefits from that pipeline. And much of the tension prior to that involved disputes over natural gas transit, fees, tariffs, and the production of other oil pipelines, like the Nord Stream pipeline in Finland, which was awaiting approval through a vote for the EU, but was halted within just a few days before Russia invaded. But this pipeline would have actually caused the Ukraine to lose its leverage against Russia in regards to natural gas and oil production, had it been cleared. This Nord pipeline was actually bombed as well, and according to the European Commission, the US and Norway are the top suppliers of oil and natural gas imports to Europe now. Well, fuck, now I know how the US benefits from this. That actually makes a lot of sense.